Some stories begin in ordinary moments but end up revealing the deepest parts of people. That's what happened on that afternoon in a bustling bank branch. The bank was crowded. Long lines and murmurs of complaints created a tense atmosphere. Employees rushed back and forth, trying to manage the chaos, while impatient customers alternated between glancing at their watches and quietly voicing their frustrations. Amidst it all, Maggie Thompson, an elderly woman, waited nervously. She clutched an envelope, her fingers slightly trembling. Maggie had come seeking answers. What seemed like a simple mistake in her account was, for her, a matter of survival. But Maggie was about to face something far greater than just bureaucracy. Finally, Maggie took a step forward. Approaching one of the service counters, she adjusted her coat, trying to appear confident, but her expression betrayed a hint of unease. "I hope they can sort this out today," she murmured to herself, glancing at the envelope with worry. Meanwhile, one of the bank employees, Todd Murphy, walked through the room. He cast quick glances at the customers and, without saying a word, seemed to prioritize only those who appeared to have greater financial means. For Todd Murphy, some issues seemed more important than others. Maggie, with her worn-out envelope, was far from his priority that day. Maggie hesitated for a moment, looking around. She approached the counter and, before speaking, took a deep breath, as if she knew she'd need strength to be heard. Unbeknownst to her, that afternoon would be unlike any other. Her attempt to be heard would lead to a moment of great humiliation, but the unexpected was on its way. Maggie approached the service counter. The teller, Brittany Parker, a young woman with a tired and impatient expression, glanced up briefly before continuing to type on her computer. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you?" Brittany asked, not taking her eyes off the screen. Maggie adjusted the envelope in her hands and took a deep breath. "Good afternoon. I'm here because my account has some charges that I believe are incorrect. I brought everything I could to try to understand." Brittany finally looked at Maggie, but her gaze was indifferent. She took the envelope mechanically and began flipping through it with little effort. "Let's see. Here it is. These charges are standard, ma'am. They're all listed in your account agreement," Brittany said, pushing the envelope back toward Maggie, visibly unsettled. Maggie tried to explain, "But I can't afford these fees. This must be a mistake. I was never informed about these charges." Brittany sighed and rolled her eyes, drawing the attention of a few people nearby. "Ma'am, maybe you don't understand how things work these days. Banks have policies and these fees are automatic. There's nothing I can do," Brittany responded, her tone dripping with disdain. Maggie felt belittled. That response not only dismissed her problem but also made her feel incompetent. She tried to hold back the tears threatening to fall. "I just want what's fair," Maggie whispered. Brittany crossed her arms and smirked slightly, as if she were in control of the situation. "Fair, ma'am. If you want to avoid fees, you need to keep more money in your account. That's how it works." The public humiliation had begun. Customers nearby whispered among themselves, and Maggie could feel the weight of their stares. Still, she tried to maintain her composure. "It can't be like this. I just want to better understand what happened," Maggie said, her voice trembling. Todd Murphy was about to make things worse for Maggie, but what he didn't know was that someone unexpected was already watching everything. Todd Murphy, the manager, walked toward the counter with firm steps. His presence commanded attention, and Brittany immediately straightened her posture, as if trying to appear more efficient. "Is there a problem here?" Todd asked, crossing his arms and casting a quick glance at Maggie before focusing on Brittany. Brittany smiled nervously. "No, sir. Just a customer having trouble understanding the account policies." Maggie, already visibly uncomfortable, tried to interject. "That's not it. I believe there's been a mistake with my account. I'm just trying to get it resolved." Todd raised his hand, cutting her off. "Ma'am, if you think there's been a mistake, you should have read the contract before opening your account. Everything is very clear for those who pay attention." Maggie stood silent for a moment, surprised by Todd's harsh tone. She took a deep breath before responding. I've always kept my account in good standing. These charges appeared out of nowhere. All I'm asking is for someone to review them." Todd let out a brief, almost mocking laugh. "Review? Ma'am, what's in the system is in the system. We don't review something that's automatic." Maggie felt the weight of the humiliation deepen. It wasn't just the coldness of the words, but the way Todd spoke, as if she had no worth at all. Maggie looked around, searching for a supportive glance among the customers, but she found only indifference. Some avoided her gaze, while others whispered among themselves. Todd leaned slightly over the counter, looking directly at Maggie. "If you can't afford the fees, maybe this bank isn't the right place for you." Maggie opened her mouth to respond, but indignation and shame made it hard to find the words. She looked down at the envelope in her hands, feeling utterly defeated. Todd seemed to consider the discussion over. To him, Maggie was nothing more than an inconvenient customer, but at that moment something unexpected happened. From across the bank, a discreet figure dressed in a casual jacket and a baseball cap had been watching everything attentively. He began to approach slowly, not drawing attention. When he heard Todd's words, he decided to step in. A calm and firm voice cut through the room. "Why are you speaking to her like that?" The entire bank fell silent. Every eye turned to the figure who had spoken. The man who had just intervened seemed ordinary at first glance, but within seconds, everyone would realize he was anything but. The atmosphere in the bank was completely silent. All eyes turned to the man who had just spoken, dressed in a casual jacket and a baseball cap. He seemed ordinary at first glance, but there was something about the firmness in his voice and the way he carried himself that captivated everyone's attention. Maggie looked at the man, surprised by the intervention. Todd Murphy turned slowly, clearly irritated by the interruption. "And who are you to question what's happening here?" Todd said, crossing his arms and furrowing his brow. The man took a few steps forward, slowly removing his cap. When his face was finally revealed, a murmur spread throughout the room. Keanu Reeves. Yes, him, the world-famous actor, was standing right there. And now everyone in the bank knew it. Keanu maintained his calm demeanor, but his eyes were locked on Todd. "It doesn't matter who I am," Keanu said in a serious but controlled tone. "What matters is why you're treating this lady like this." Maggie was even more shocked. She looked at Keanu, almost unable to believe that someone like him was standing there defending her. Todd took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. "Mr. Reeves, I had no idea you were here, but look, this is none of your business. We have policies at this bank, and this lady isn't meeting the requirements." Keanu gave a faint, ironic smile. "Policies?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "Or an excuse to humiliate someone who's just trying to solve a problem?" Keanu's presence was magnetic. Even Brittany, who had seemed confident earlier, now glanced nervously at Todd, waiting for him to say something to justify the situation. Keanu turned to Maggie, speaking in a softer tone. "Ma'am, what exactly is the problem? Can you show me what's going on?" Maggie hesitated but handed the envelope to Keanu. He took it carefully and began examining the documents inside. After a few seconds, he looked up at Todd. "This is a mistake," Keanu stated. "These charges shouldn't be here. You're going to fix this right now." Todd attempted to argue, but Keanu raised his hand, cutting him off. "If this is a mistake, you'll fix it. And if it's not, it's going to be much worse for you." The bank was in shock. No one had expected someone like Keanu Reeves to step in so directly. But he wasn't finished yet. Keanu placed the envelope on the counter, fixing Todd with a firm gaze. "I want you to review this immediately, and I'm not leaving until everything is resolved." Todd was speechless. But what he didn't know was that Keanu was just beginning to connect the dots to something much bigger than just an error in Maggie's account. Todd Murphy, visibly uncomfortable, adjusted the collar of his shirt and shot a tense glance at Brittany. She looked just as lost as he did, unsure of what to say. But Keanu wasn't about to wait. He leaned slightly over the counter, maintaining his signature calm demeanor. "We're not just talking about a simple mistake here, are we? We're talking about how you're treating a customer who deserves respect. And from what I've seen, that's clearly lacking here." Brittany tried to break the silence, her voice trembling slightly. "Mr. Reeves, maybe you don't understand how the system works. We follow strict guidelines." Keanu raised his hand again, cutting her off politely but firmly. "Strict guidelines?" he asked. "I understand enough to know these fees are completely arbitrary, and I also know you have the autonomy to correct them." Maggie, standing beside him, clasped her hands together, still in disbelief over what was unfolding. Keanu looked at her, offering a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, we're going to sort this out." The entire bank was watching the scene unfold, with both customers and staff in complete silence. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Keanu took the envelope back and showed the papers to Todd. "These statements," he said, holding up the documents. "The charges started 2 months ago. Go correct this." Keanu looked at Maggie, who nodded. "Yes," she replied softly. Keanu turned back to Todd. "And tell me, why did these maintenance fees triple? Because it doesn't look like there's any legitimate reason here." Todd started to speak, but Keanu interrupted him again. "You might want to think carefully about your answer, because if this is something bigger than a mistake, you and everyone here are going to have a much bigger problem on your hands." The tension was palpable. The employees who had previously seemed indifferent now looked visibly nervous. Todd knew he couldn't keep dodging the situation. Todd swallowed hard and stepped back. "I'll need to review this in the system," he stammered. Keanu crossed his arms, staring firmly at Todd. "Then start now." Maggie watched, still astonished, as Todd rushed to the computer and began typing frantically. Brittany tried to keep up, but she was clearly panicking as Todd reviewed the account. Keanu remained steadfast by Maggie's side. What had initially seemed like a simple mistake was beginning to reveal something much deeper. Todd stood up from his chair, visibly sweating. "Mr. Reeves, there's something wrong here," he said hesitantly. Keanu leaned in slightly. "Wrong? How?" Todd glanced at Maggie, then back at Keanu before finally admitting, "It looks like these charges were applied to multiple accounts, mostly belonging to elderly customers." The room grew even quieter. Keanu slowly shook his head. "That's not a mistake, that's a scheme." Maggie wasn't the only victim, and Keanu knew he was just starting to uncover the scope of this issue. Keanu was about to expose something far bigger than he had imagined. Todd, now in full panic mode, desperately searched for a way out, but there was no escape. Todd Murphy was visibly shaken. He fidgeted nervously with his tie as he tried to explain the situation to Keanu, who didn't break eye contact, maintaining his firm stance. "Mr. Reeves, I swear this was a system error," Todd stammered, his voice trembling. "It's not something we did on purpose." Keanu narrowed his eyes, crossing his arms. "A system error? How convenient. Why do these errors only affect elderly accounts? Do you think we wouldn't notice?" Maggie looked at Todd, her indignation clear. She finally mustered the courage to speak. "So I'm not the only one. How many people have you cheated?" It was clear to everyone in the bank that Todd didn't have a convincing explanation. Brittany, standing beside him, looked even more nervous, as if she knew something bigger was about to come to light. Todd tried to respond, but his voice faltered. "I'll investigate this. I need more time to figure it out." Keanu stepped forward, placing his hands on the counter. "You've had enough time. Now you're going to tell the truth." Keanu turned to Todd, who was now visibly panicking. "How many people have been affected by this? Tell the truth." Todd swallowed hard and glanced at Brittany, who quickly averted her eyes. "I'm not sure, maybe hundreds." Todd's confession landed like a bombshell. It wasn't just Maggie. There were countless other victims. Keanu knew he had to take action. Keanu pulled out his phone and began recording a video. "What you're hearing is a bank manager admitting that his bank has been charging elderly customers unjust fees to boost profits," he said, pointing the camera at Todd and Brittany. This is unacceptable, and we're going to make sure everyone knows what's happening here. Todd raised his hands, desperate. Wait, please don't do that. We can fix this. I can fix it right now. Keanu lowered the phone slightly, but his tone remained firm. Fix it. This isn't just about returning the money. This is about justice. Do you think an apology is enough? Todd looked at Keanu, sweat dripping from his brow. What do you want from me? Keanu leaned in slightly, locking eyes with Todd. I want you to make this right for every single person who was affected. And I want the authorities to know exactly what happened here. In that moment, Todd realized there was no way out. He nodded, resigned, as Keanu stood firm, determined to ensure everyone received the respect and justice they deserved. Hours later, the bank released an official statement announcing radical changes. Todd and Brittany were removed from their positions, and a full audit was initiated to identify all accounts affected by the unjust fees. Maggie, standing beside Keanu, received more than just an apology. She was reimbursed for all her lost money, along with additional compensation for the hardships she had faced. Mrs. Thompson, on behalf of the bank, we sincerely apologize for this terrible situation. We are committed to correcting this immediately, said a visibly embarrassed bank representative. Maggie looked at Keanu, tears welling in her eyes. I never could have done this alone. Thank you for believing in me. Keanu offered a small smile. You should never have gone through this, but now it's not just about you. We're helping so many others who were wronged. As Maggie left the bank, she seemed different. Still humble but with a renewed spark of hope in her eyes. Keanu, standing beside her, glanced at the other customers waiting in silence. Clearly moved by what they had just witnessed, Keanu turned to the crowd and spoke with clarity. Never let anyone tell you that you're worth less. Whether you're elderly, young, wealthy, or struggling, everyone deserves respect. And most importantly, never be afraid to fight for what's right. Keanu's words echoed through the room, earning applause from customers who had initially seemed indifferent. He gave Maggie a discreet wave goodbye and walked out of the bank, leaving behind a lesson no one would soon forget. A few days later, the video of Keanu exposing the bank scheme went viral, garnering millions of views. Not only did the bank face a thorough investigation, but many victims began recovering their lost savings. Maggie's story became more than just a call for justice. It became a symbol of hope for many. Respect and justice should be the only rules we follow. May this story inspire you to act with courage and empathy wherever you are. Did this story move you? Share it so more people can feel inspired, and comment. Respect is for everyone to join this wave of humanity.